Hello and welcome to another episode of Brax. I am joined here today by Preston Schmiedel.
That is true. I am here in the podcast studio here at Bethel University.
So, you're a student here at Bethel, and what do you do here?
Well, I'm a junior. I'm a biokinetics major, which makes me sound smarter than I actually am. That's kinesiology, exercise science, and I also have two minors in biblical and theological studies and psychology. I'm working on those as well, along with being a RA and the proud fourth-string goalie on the club hockey team. So
Sweet.
Got to rep my team there.
Man, this guy, he's a man of many hats. So,
so many.
Preston's going to be my co-host, guy who asks questions and such. So what is the question today that we're going to be talking about?
So the question we're talking about today is the wonderful question of around the subject of God changing your life. Does he promise to change your life? And what does that change look like? So I think, Brax, if you want to kind of open us up.
Sure.
That's kind of the question I have, and I know there's other people who have that question as well.
Yeah. Well, so I think if you've been around the church at all for some amount of time, you've probably heard a testimony, right? These are the, the drug addict kind of testimony, and we kind of have a culture of that in Christianity. There's a famous one, for me at least famous. I remember back in 2009. It was in August. This might be dating me a little bit, but it was Rock the River.
August of like last year?
No.
So old.
2009. Rock the River. So do you remember the band Flyleaf?
No.
No?
I don't.
Lacey Williams?
Nope.
She was cute. Very good singer too. Well, like the Skillet era.
Yeah.
And okay, this is also like for Gen Z. Like I was talking to someone the other day, and they had no idea who 1,000 Foot Crutch was or Skillet or anything like that.
I've obviously know Skillet. I've heard of 1,000 Foot Crutch, but I also
heard of 1,000 Foot Crutch,
like a singular.
All right.
Singular. I will say my music taste for when I was a young lad consisted of a lot of Mercy Me, a lot of Casting Crowns, and some random golden earring.
Okay, I don't know them. Well, at any rate, Flyleaf, look them up. Very, very good band. And they were there. Franklin Graham was there.
Okay, yeah.
It was at an island in St. Louis Park, Harriet Island, right? Is that it?
That sounds familiar.
Sounds right.
We're gonna go with that.
So anyway, that's where this concert evangelism thing was, and they played a testimony from Brian Head Welch, and you can look this up. Yeah, he was the former, I think, bassist for Korn, the band Korn.
I like Korn, both the food and the band.
Yeah, he's back actually, but he because he left the band.
He left the band.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the drama.
Here's the story.
I know they have good guitar riffs.
Yeah, so here's the story: is Brian Head Welch was playing for Korn. He was heavily into drugs. He's trying to raise his daughter, his little daughter. His girlfriend, who was the mother, had left because of methamphetamine and stuff. And he starts taking meth just to function, and he feels like he's a despicable human being. His realtor, out of the blue, is like, "Hey, do you want to come to church?" And so Brian Head Welch goes to church and then accepts Jesus, and then he throws away all of his meth and cocaine and all these drugs, and he leaves the band, and he starts writing Christian music, and so there's this huge change, and a couple things with that. It's one, that's awesome.
Right. I mean, we're not going to sit here and say that's a bad thing.
Brian Head Welch should have done methamphetamines, He just kept going and then been a Christian. We're not going to say that.
No.
This is obviously a good thing.
Right. Dubs only.
But, there is kind of a critique around testimonies within Christian culture for a long time has been, your testimony is your testimony. Don't wish for the drug addict. Yeah, don't wish for the drug addict's testimony.
I remember I was a young kid, I think it was probably 12 or 13. We were up in Fort Collins for staff training. and we had the youth programming and everything. And there was a young woman who went up on stage and shared her testimony. And it wasn't like the drug dealer or the rescued from sex addiction or from include whatever you want to include in that. It was that she just didn't have a testimony, but Jesus was still very real in her life. And she talked about how that was hard for her at times, but that it's okay not to have this crazy testimony, which was the first time I had heard one of those. And it was actually fairly impactful. I still remember it now to this day. So that shows something. So there's a point to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been, I think, a good Christian response to these exciting testimonies is to also include, hey, your testimony is important because it's the work of God in your life, But let's take a step back and kind of break down these very spectacular testimonies, kind of these rock bottom testimonies. So if you listen to Brian Head Welch, and I would say you can use him kind of as a template for a lot of these kinds of stories because they kind of go the same way, and the way that it goes is typically. I was living this way with this addiction, right?
Right.
So insert lifestyle, insert addiction.
Right.
And then I got to rock bottom. So you're a psych minor, and hopefully your classes will talk a little bit about what rock bottom is, and I think rock bottom is that place of decision for a human. Right, is something significant happens to kind of wake someone up. Right. So let's say, you're a drug addict and you have a buddy who ODs.
You've heard that story a lot.
Yeah. Yep. And that's common for testimonies, right? So there's a death is now entering the garden, and this Garden of Eden is like. There's cocaine trees and stuff. Like it's this place of ignorance and immortality, right? You think that you can just keep doing this forever, but then death enters and it meets you. And so when that happens, you're faced with a choice. Okay, am I going to continue down the path that I'm currently living? And the destination, the final destination of that is death.
Right.
ODing or dying alone under a bridge because I'm going to lose everything.
What's coming.
Yeah, I'm going to lose everything to my addiction. Like that's a horrible. It's like one step closer to hell. So that's one option. The other option in front of you is hold on to something valuable. So typically this is family. And if you listen to Brian Head Welch's testimony, it is family for him. Like he really values his daughter. So keeping family alive, being there for family, that might be something that you want to hold on to. That's if we're talking about final destinations, on the one hand is death, like certain death and the destruction of everything that you love. And the other is like the thriving of everything that you really hold dear and value. So maybe it's family, maybe it's career, maybe it's reputation, take your pick. And so what happens for someone who's in rock bottom, they see these two choices in front of them. Some people decide they're going to keep doing what they're going to do because they're nihilistic and they don't care. They're just going to die. That's fine by them. But then the other is, okay, you know what? I'm going to actually try to hold on to what I value in life and to have a flourishing kind of life. Then the question becomes, how do I stop doing what I'm doing right now? And how do I get to this destination of a flourishing life? And what happens in Christian testimony is the pathway to a flourishing life is Jesus. Now, this is important. Notice Jesus isn't the end of the path. Like he isn't the ends. He's the means to the end.
And are you saying that within like the people's stories or
in the people's stories?
In the stories, not just like reality itself.
And in reality, like, again, I'm using Brian Head Welch's testimony as kind of a template for this. But if you listen to his testimony, he's like, my daughter is going to live in this horrible environment because of me. She's probably going to end up in drugs. This isn't a good life for her. What can I do for her? And then it's, well, Jesus is how I will preserve her from this horrible situation in life, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's also in reality. Like, you think about it, like when you become a Christian, isn't it kind of like this pitch, like a sales pitch of like, tired of things not working out for you in life? Tired of living in addiction and sin, hating your family relationships? Well, you can get out of that. Try Jesus, you know?
Yeah, and in the same extent, you know, to that, like, you know, try Jesus, you know, sales pitch. It's, you know, you want to go to heaven, right? You know,
Yeah, that's the other thing.
You don't want to go to hell,
Right.
do you? You want to go to heaven, and you want to be at the pearly gates, and you don't want the firestorms of the underworld.
Yeah. Well, and that's taking the whole rock bottom and two destinations to the metaphysical level, right? Is like you have hell in front of you or you have heaven in front of you. But again, that makes Jesus a means to an end.
Right. You know, it's, you know, I don't know where all our listeners are coming from, but at least here where we are, you'll drive down the interstate or the highway and you'll see these billboards along the side of the road that say heaven or hell, you choose.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, there's like no mention of Jesus.
Right.
On it. It's just heaven or hell.
Yeah.
Or like maybe there's Jesus in the side corner. Like, this is how you get to heaven, or this is how you not get to heaven.
Right. So it's like you don't actually value Jesus. What you value is not burning in hell forever. Right?
That's a motivation.
That's a lot of evangelicalism. And then there's the other, like the more practical, you know, physical aspect of you don't actually value Jesus. What you value is your family staying together. What you value is not having a crippling addiction that destroys your life. And Jesus is the means to be without that addiction. Mm-hmm. So, and notice, it doesn't have to be Jesus for rock bottom stories, for people to turn their lives around. It doesn't have to be Jesus in order to experience a changed life, because you have the psychotherapeutic endeavor, right? Mm-hmm. Self-help.
There's a lot of people who change their lives around with therapy. I mean, I know I have used therapy in the past of my life. I'm a psychology minor, so I obviously appreciate and see the value of it. And there's people who have had some that don't know Jesus that have had some incredible turnarounds.
Yeah, well, and you think about, like, why is Jordan Peterson so wildly popular?
Right.
Because what he talks about works. Mm-hmm. And people have experienced a lot of life change because of the stuff that he says. Agree with him or not, like, it works for a lot of people. It doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
But it works for a lot of people. Take another religion, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, right? Those offer real life change.
Right. And like on the Islam, the Muslim point, I was doing a little dive into Islam and researching it this summer, and I came across like a YouTube short, and it was just this young man giving his testimony how he was like a member of the LGBT community, and he was kind of, he would say living in that sin, and then he found Allah, and then he was changed and doing things differently now. And for me, that was the first time that I had actually seen someone have, like, you could say, a Christian,
right?
What we're talking about here, a transition from death to life,
right?
As we would kind of, use a buzzword or a buzz phrase that we have in Christian culture. And that was really, I think, in just an objective way, that was cool to see, but also it was kind of challenging for me, because it was something that I wanted to see, because I'd always wondered, like, why do people flock to other religions that aren't Christianity? Like, how are people being changed? Isn't it the Holy Spirit or Jesus changing us? Why are people not just, help me understand? And then I saw this, and I'm like, that's fascinating. I think cool isn't the right word. I think fascinating is the right word. Yeah,
because it's touching on a piece of reality that we need to dig deeper into. And I think that reality is the first thing that, when it comes to, does God change your life? Does God promise to change your life? I think the first thing when examining this question that we have to say, given the data, is that God does not promise exclusive rights to life change. Like he doesn't have the corner market on in this life change.
Unpack that a little bit more for me.
So, as we've seen,
here's a snapshot on what we're talking about next week on Brax Tags.
okay, but it seems like those are our options, right? And for if I'm not experiencing this kind of life change, I can be, it might be that I'm not really a Christian. It might be that God has abandoned me for whatever reason because I'm not experiencing this life change. All in all, it's extremely discouraging.